Well, this movie's a journey. Alright guys, hi, I'm back. It's gonna be a shorter batch today, mostly because I haven't had much time to go see movies in theaters. It sucks, and I do not like the fact that that's the case, but it's true. It just is what it is. For example, I haven't gotten around to seeing the Ghostbusters movie yet, so that's probably gonna wait till it goes on streaming before I make a review of that. But I did see a few movies that I really liked, and I want to talk about them. So we're gonna start that off with Love Lies Bleeding, which is, I think now that I've gotten past the 30-second mark, one part romantic drama, one part crime thriller, and one part horny drug trip. So for those who don't remember this movie, don't know what it's about, or haven't heard of it at all, Love Lies Bleeding is an extremely queer thriller that came out earlier this year, in which I'm looking at the IMDb page as I talk this time. I got even prepared because I always forget to do that, and I scrolled right past the cast, and that disappoints me. Okay, where this woman who is very very muscular, this kind of like what's what I'm looking for? Muscle mommy. That's it. Yeah, muscle mommy is the term. Played by Annie Baryshnikov. Okay, there we go. I got it. Anna Baryshnikov, and who runs into this owner of or at least employee of a local gym, played by Kristen Stewart, who's named Lou. They kind of form a connection. Daisy, who's the name of the really muscular chick, wants to go to this big muscle bodybuilding contest in Vegas, and Kristen decides to help her out by providing her with steroids so she can kind of buff up. But while all this is happening, Daisy also starts working with what turns out to be Kristen Stewart's father, played by Ed Harris, who also turns out to be kind of like the leader of a crime ring of his own. Shenanigans happen. I don't want to give anything away, at least not right at the offset, and that kind of puts them at odds with each other, and then a bunch of shit happens. So that's probably the best way I can describe it in a nutshell. One thing I do respect the hell out of this movie is it's very, very much its own unique thing. You definitely I can't say I've seen a movie quite like this. It sells its parts very well. It is excellently acted. The way it's shot and directed is very interesting. It's extremely horny, which is not a bad thing for me, but it is just, it's very clear that whoever wrote this has a fetish. And that's not a bad thing. It's very much like, hey, representation. Get all the weird, kinky shit in there. That's kind of my opinion on it. As long as everyone's consensual, I don't give a shit. Unless it's pedophilia. But yes, and Kristen Stewart and Baryshnikov have a lot of great chemistry together. I do respect Kristen Stewart's particular filmography choices, very much like Robin Pattinson post-Twilight. She basically used the buckets of money she got from that to do whatever the fuck she wants, and she has excelled in that, and she excels here. I'm not familiar with Anna Baryshnikov's other work, but I do know she's excellent here, and I'm excited to see where she's going to go from here, because you can definitely get her a lot of attention. Ed Harris is always dependable as the villain. It's Ed Harris. Whenever you cast him as a villain, you're all like, okay, no matter how, regardless of how the rest of the movie is, you're set there. Ed Harris is a dependable villain character, and he sells it hard. This movie has a very unique visual identity. It has very unique, just energy and vibe, and how quickly it shifts from one tone to another, pretty much flawlessly in a lot of ways. And in a way, it presents this romantic relationship. Is also very interesting. While part of just obviously being extremely queer, also does kind of an extremely dysfunctional partnership of two people that probably shouldn't be together. And I can't really get too much into specific why without going to spoilers. There is one point in particular I do want to talk about that might involve spoilers, so when I get there, I'll give you a heads up. But it feels very much of a cycle of codependence. It seems like it's going through. This is my partner pointed out. Not just her and Kristen Stewart, but also the people around her. She has this other associate played by Dave Franco, who I've always thought is the better of the Francos, and I was proven right on that. Who kind of is an abusive relationship with Kristen Stewart's sister. They have a kid. She's obviously had a lot of mixed feelings about that. And again, I can't say too much. I'm going to spoil what happens with that, but it does seem there's a heavy theme of just bad, dysfunctional relationships and people making terrible mistakes for what they believe love is. And even in this case, with the ending, the way this movie ends, does imply that the fate of this relationship they're currently in is probably a bad idea and will lead to more negative consequences down the road. That being said, it's in that way, it feels like to me that there's almost like a energy of futility within the relationships. Like no matter what anyone does, it's gonna end badly, even when it's like this quote unquote happy ending. I don't really think the happy ending in here is a happy ending. I think that's a pretty easy read. And again, it's fascinating. It's a fascinating film, and it's hard. I know people smarter than me, who are better at film analysis, and we're probably gone to this movie in great depths. So if you want like a full like film analysis, I recommend going there. I haven't had time to sit down with this movie and really analyze all its bits and bobs. I do just know that it was a very surreal experience, particularly how in the climax of the film, which if you've seen it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And all the way these pieces come together in a way that is very unexpected, but very unique to itself. And I do love its unique visual identity. This is directed by Rose Glass, and I think I've seen other work from her. What else has she done? I'm gonna look her. Saint Maud. Okay, so I missed Saint Maud, but I know Milena saw Saint Maud, and she was really excited about this one for that reason. Saint Maud's also pretty fucked up. This movie's fucked up in chunks, literally. Anyway. So there's one point I do want to talk about, so I'm going to get into spoilers a bit here, so be warned if you don't want anything spoiled for you. I do recommend seeing this movie if you like very artsy, unique films that definitely, whether you love it or hate it, you can't argue it has its own identity. So I'd recommend it for those bounds, and I do want to get spoilers for a little bit here. There is definitely a point where Daisy kind of starts going on a murder spree. And every time she does, particularly with physical violence, I suppose, obviously not physical violence, but like, less guns, more bam. She tends to like Hulk out a little bit, like quite literally, and it does lead to this climax of her just exploding into just a giantess, which again, like this is a case of the writer's barely disguised fetish, but and she comes in like to crush Ed Harris with her giant thigh. I don't remember exactly how it was, but she turned into a giant and gets Ed Harris that way. And obviously, I don't think it's meant to be interpreted literally, but it's still very much a what the fuck moment when it actually does happen. And the character of Daisy herself is interesting, and the way that her and, is it Joe? Is Kristen Stewart's name? Lou. Lou's relationship kind of evolves. It's definitely, it feels like it's implied that Daisy had some pre-existing issues leading up to this moment. So when she does start going down her downward spiral, again, this goes back to it foreshadowing that this relationship is probably not a good fit for anyone involved, and they should probably stay away from each other. But Lou is repeating the same patterns her sister did, and her father did, or like her mother did. Yeah, her mother. Of just falling in love with probably bad people and mistaking that infatuation and mistaking that sexual chemistry as love, as a real relationship. Even at the very end when Daisy is sleeping in the car and she's dragging the body, like a body that she had to kill because they thought she was dead. Backing up a little bit, there's this one person that's really infatuated with Lou and kind of hangs around her all the time, and Daisy shoots her towards the end on request from Ed Harris because Daisy went to the bodybuilder competition and beat the shit out of one of the contestants. So Ed Harris is like, "Oh, I'll clear this up for you, but you gotta do this." So he shoots her, or she shoots her, and apparently she didn't die. And this isn't discovered until Kristen Stewart has her in the back of the truck as they're fleeing away from their old lives and trying to build a new. But this woman's still alive, so Kristen Stewart just strangles her with her bare hands and then drags her out to bury her in the desert while her girlfriend sleeps. And I feel like there's definitely a very ominous nature of just, again, an extremely unhealthy relationship dynamic where Daisy is this increasingly unhinged muscle mommy who can who could just tear off somebody's jaw with their bare hands, and Kristen Stewart is like desperate to protect her from the consequences of her own actions, despite the fact that Daisy doesn't really seem to care all that much. She's impulsive, she's aggressive, and she doesn't really think things through. and Lou does. So it just feels like they're doomed to a perpetual cycle of Daisy making awful decisions and Lou constantly having to clean up after her. And this is also kind of teased, and I gotta watch it again. Like, I don't know if I misread the scene, but what I got out of it was this part where she calls back home to her family. I think her brother picks up, and then the parents intercept the phone call and call her a monster and say, never talk to us again. And I don't know if that's like a homophobia thing or it's implied that Daisy also did something really horrible back home, and she's actively running away from that. So there's definitely an implied pattern of aggressive recklessness. While Lou is definitely the more controlled one. She's reserved. She doesn't speak to anyone she doesn't have to, or at least as far as authority figures go. She's largely keeps to herself. And again, it's an interesting dynamic to play off of, and you just know it's headed for disaster. So I like the ambiguity. I like the ambiguous nature of that relationship and the way it parallels with the relationships within Lou's orbit. So that's all that to say. I think this is a very good film. I think it's a very fascinating film. I do recommend it for anyone who's into this kind of thing. Granted, if you made it this far into it, then I just spoiled most of it for you, but be that as it may, still go see it anyway. And if you have your own theories and your own thoughts on the movie, I would love to know what you guys think, because it's a movie where I feel like a lot of it flew over my head, so I'd love to know what you guys think. Let me know your theories in the comments, and I will gladly engage with you in that discussion. So, in the meantime, I got 2 other movies to cover that I'm going to get to right now, so thank you all for watching. I'll see you all in the next one. Bye.